End of intermission. Part 2.
Okay, so what's your bronze?
My bronze is Wait. Help Left Over. Another song I think is underrated in that it's a great band performance. You got George with his volume pedal going, those swells that he drops in. Great co-vocal, not even a harmony, but a co-vocal from Paul who sings the bridges. I feel as though they changed the drum part out from the first bridge to the second. One, it's a beat straight through. The other is just him riding that swell of the ride cymbal. They're different. And it's got a bit of urgency to it. Hearing those two singing in harmony, I've Been Alone, it's sort of the Rubber Soul equivalent of You're Gonna Lose That Girl in terms of just being a great pop performance. Doesn't have to say anything meaningful, but it's all of them sort of shining on it.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that it's the equivalent to You're Gonna Lose That Girl for this album. I like that. I do think this one fits better on Help. It feels more of that time.
Yeah, and not for no reason.
Yeah, not for no reason, right. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really all I have to say about it. And if you have nothing to add, then we can move on.
Okay, so that leads to my silver, which we've sort of talked a little bit about already, and that's In My Life, which I suspect is not going to be one of your favorites based on what you've said so far. But to me, such a simple and pleasing opening guitar riff, another unusual Ringo drum pattern. I don't want to say it's rocky, but it's a little different than the song itself. It's not a soft sound. It draws a little bit of attention. It's an unusual drum pattern.
It's kind of like what he did already on All I've Got to Do, that tapping hi-hat, close hi-hat, going alongside with the snare. But it is also like note for note, beat for beat, what the Youngbloods would do on Get Together, including going to playing the cup of the cymbal on the break.
You're over my head. You're over my head. I'm not
you know the song Get Together, right?
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on, people now.
Yeah.
Same exact drum pattern.
And Ringo had it first, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not sure I have anything else to add about the lyrics. They're wise and emotional, simple, but effective, reflective and gentle.
And well sung.
Absolutely well sung. And there's, a great moment when John goes to the falsetto at the end.
Oh, yes.
Just a great pop, compelling, catches your ear.
And he's 24 going on 25, looking back.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have no problem with the song, just to make sure we're clear. It didn't make my top three, probably owing to, number one, like I said, I thought that No One Compares With You part sounded a bit forced, but also a bit of overfamiliarity. I mean, I can't tell you how many weddings I've been to where I've heard that song, plus it's just always around. So I have no problem with the song at all. And I guess it's a good thing when you've got a record to work off of that's got so many great songs. And part of me tends to gravitate toward the unsung anyway. Yeah.
Sort of to your point about it being an exercise, perhaps, or a little bit contrived, this would be the appropriate time for John to say it was a song about Cynthia. And I don't think he ever did.
No, I don't think he ever copped to anything being inspired by Cynthia. And there's things that he absolutely, if not admits to, like You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Some people thought it was about Brian. I've never seen a quote where he said that directly. God knows there's 50 million Yoko songs, including ones he wrote before he met her. Girl, that was about Yoko, but I just didn't know it yet. Come on.
Actually, there is one exception to the Cynthia thing, which you probably know where I'm going. Across the Universe, he said the verses of that were a bad reaction to Cynthia.
Wouldn't shut up. Right.
Right.
I've seen the theory. I think Jude Kessler puts this forth, and she may have her reasons. It's not for me to say one way or another. She thought that It's Only Love might have been inspired by Cynthia.
That sounds like an exercise to me.
That's how he regarded it. And we'll cross that bridge. That was one that he considered to be an abomination. But
right. I mean, I can see how Cynthia might be in there, but I don't hear it. I've never heard it that way.
Certainly, he never said it out loud. And Ask Me Why was another one. I seem to have read somewhere somebody thought that might have been inspired by Cynthia. You're going back to the Hamburg days.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, that was one thing he was not willing to give. Kind of like everybody thought Something was about Patty.
Yeah.
And sometimes George would say, yeah. Sometimes he'd say it begrudgingly, but most consistently said, I wasn't thinking about her at all. If I was thinking about anyone, it was Ray Charles.
I thought he said he was thinking about God.
That was another after the fact thing. And then that leads to a whole line of songs that are so ambiguous. They could be a love song about a woman or it could be about God, learning how to love you, which I think is one of the most exquisite songs he ever produced. It could definitely be read either way.
Yeah.
But that's George's equivalent of every song John wrote being about Yoko.
That's funny. But that reminds me of something. So when interviewers got John to open up about what his songs meant, his thoughts about him, and mostly it's that Playboy interview.
Mm-hmm. He did one in Hit Parader too in like 72. There was an earlier version of that. And mostly they align, is my recollection.
Okay. My point is that perhaps he doesn't reference Cynthia because Yoko's around.
Absolutely.
Nothing prior to Yoko means anything.
Right.
So maybe he would have said, In My Life is About Sin later, but Yoko's there, so he can't,
They should have asked him during the Lost Weekend. Now you can talk, John, just between us.
Yeah, that was where he seemed to be at his most, kind of reflective and coherent and peaceful. It would have been a great time to have that. That's an excellent point. If that Playboy interview had occurred during the Lost Weekend, there might have been so much more warm, positive things to say about these songs.
Right. And then this Don Juan shit.
The what shit?
The Don Juan shit. I'm the pupil, she is my teacher.
Oh. Yeah.
I bought that damn book because of Playboy interview.
Which book?
The Don Juan, the teachings of John Juan, whatever the hell it was, the thing with the desert on the cover.
Oh, okay.
Tells you how many times I revisited it.
It sounds like we hit a sore point.
It's all good. It's all Beatles.
So one thing, I'll ask your opinion. Of course, this is the one song apparently where John and Paul disagree about who wrote the melody.
Right.
Who do you think wrote the melody?
I know that there was that person who went through the trouble of coming up with that computer study, putting all the data in, and my computer proves that it was John Lennon who wrote this. Says you. I don't buy that kind of shit. I think that, as has been pointed out prior to that experiment, that historically Paul did tend to have the vertical melodies. That was his thing. I think his memory of it was very clear. Paul's was about being at Weybridge, and John had his Mellotron, which had come in the summer of 65, and he sat down and started playing with, doodling on it, and that's how he came up with the melody that he was channeling, a very specific Smokey Robinson's and the Miracles song that he based that melody on, and then they wedded it to John's lyrics, because that was all John had at that point was lyrics, and that's where it came from. John tried to lay claim to writing the majority of Eleanor Rigby, which is disputed by absolutely everybody that was around them. So I think that he definitely had a point of pride about In My Life and maybe was therefore more territorial about it. I would have loved to have seen them interviewed together to duke it out, to see, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, I have no stake in it one way or another.
Yeah.
If John wants to claim he wrote the melody, let him have that. But where are the other melodies you did that were in that mold? Because his stuff tended to be more monochromatic, more bluesy, and therefore more compelling in terms of authenticity, in terms of this is my real life I'm singing about. Mm-hmm. That's just a musical observation taking a step back. And if he did write In My Life, then it's rather atypical.
Okay. And to your point about sort of the scientific approach to this, I remember probably in the 70s or probably the 80s, that the scientific approach definitely said it was a Paul type of melody. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, there was another scientific study that said, no, it's a John melody. So I don't know.
I don't either. But what I do know is that you can skew data to get whatever result you are looking for.
Right.
So it's like, what expert do you want to believe, I guess? That's what it comes down to.
All right. So you've done your bronze and silver, and I've done mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're at gold. For me, gold is Norwegian Wood.
Good.
A wonderful story. The economy, you mentioned it before. I think this is maybe 2 minutes, and so much ground is covered in 2 minutes. The sitar, just a wonderful accent. Once again, Paul, just his harmony vocal so elevates this song. That's it. I have a question for you, but I'll get to that later. That's why it's my gold.
Fantastic choice. And I'm glad you brought it up just so we can talk about it, because I didn't make it my top 3, not for any lack on its part, but because there is so much richness of this album to talk about. So I didn't, at least not for the UK version.
Okay. So when I first heard this song, and I would have heard this pretty much of the time, though I was young, 10, something like that, the thought never crossed my mind that there was arson involved. And I still, when I listen to it, I just don't get that feeling. I get the feeling it's just kind of a throwaway, echoing her maybe materialism, just sort of making fun of, isn't it good Norwegian wood, as like, I could care less.
Right.
As opposed to, I lit the fire, meaning I lit the joint on fire. I should say not the joint on fire, but the apartment or whatever on fire. So I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Like you, the arson never occurred to me. I thought it was, again, being exposed to it as a kid, and I didn't think any deeper about it for years and years and years, was that she's gone. He woke up in her place. She's left. He's just going to make himself at home. So he lit a fire in the fireplace, was as far as I thought about it. Isn't it good Norwegian wood? I thought that echoing what comes in the first verse was maybe implicitly sarcastic.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I took it. Now, when Paul came out with the interview and said, oh, yeah, and at the end, we had him burn the place down, that is not implicit in a lyric. One can certainly read it that way, but I didn't think it was obvious. And if that's his own interpretation, that's great, because then you've got multiple ways of looking at the same exact scenario through the same bit of music and lyric. I saw the ending as kind of a shrug. Like, I guess this one night stand is over.
I totally agree. And I thought it sort of a sarcastic, a little snide, like, isn't it good? Yeah, whatever. Norwegian wood.
Now, in the clear light of day, I'm seeing a little bit more about this girl that was so important the night before. And, just kind of meh. But that was my perception of it. It's interesting that we both have this takeaway. I don't know if it's a Midwestern thing or if it's just, we never had those kind of experiences. I don't know.
We're not mass murderers. Perhaps that's why.
That too. Or arsonists.
Yeah, arsonists, right.
Yeah. It's great that it can work on so many levels. And as you say, in economy, so many musical ideas that don't sound forced together, but they all just mesh beautifully. And again, you cannot give enough credit to the guy overseeing this, George Martin, that you didn't see through 1968 102 takes of anything. It's like when he was holding the reins, they stayed focused, on point, and sharp. And yes, they had a certain amount of urgency going into making of this record, and they were coming up dry halfway through it, and they had to reach back to get weight in there and just flesh out the album. They're working up to the last minute and rethinking I'm Looking Through You just to make it work for the record. So this pressure cooker of circumstance, you can't wrap your head around how astonishing the results were, given this mountain they had to climb to make it all work in such a compact period of time.
Right. And what is it? They recorded this in 3 weeks? Have I got that?
It might have been, no, I think it was a little bit longer than that. They started in October and ended in November, but they were right up against it because this thing had to be pressed in shops by Christmas. And it was released, I think, December 3rd, December 5th in the States. So we're talking a very narrow window.
Okay.
And then, look at all the tours they did that year.
Yeah. I must say, I'm fascinated that one of these that we've talked about so far isn't your gold. I can't imagine what your gold is.
An atypical choice. An unsung song. So we're done with Norwegian for now?
I think so.
Okay. The Word.
Ah, okay.
I think it's so overlooked, both message-wise and musical construction-wise. It's one of those songs, first of all, musically, based on piano, not a lot of guitar except for those little stabbing, which was kind of a 1965 sound in other people's records that year. But nice block harmonies, then John breaking out his own for the verses, starting this implicitly spiritual song, the first words out of his mouth of the verse, in the beginning. Nice touch. That's beautiful. And it's sort of this precursor to certainly All You Need Is Love. and give peace a chance. But it's him, it's messianic John for the first time, really wanting to use his platform to promote something good. You know, they'd said that they were all potheads at this point. They'd taken acid a couple times to this point, but not the full immersion by the time of Revolver. But that has to be what's informing his wanting to evangelize on behalf of love at this point. It's an interesting that they didn't use this one for Yellow Submarine, because that whole love thing at the end in Pepperland, in the face of the meanings, it seems like it mesh right in there. But I guess they had all you need is love, so that was what they went with. But I think it's a great message, a great performance, nice arrangement. I love the organ. And then there's that whole musical, we're going to build a song around one note, and it's got that drone throughout it. So you've got that musical experimentation going on at the same time. So not a song that got a lot of airplay. I don't know if anybody ever covered it, one that never seemed to look back at it, but it's an early clue to the new direction. It's just this sort of forerunner of lots of things that would come, and they just pull it off. You don't sound like you're being preached to.
Mm.
It's just, it works as a pop ditty, but also it's like, wow, it's got a really good message to it that's bigger than boy-girl relationships.
I like the fact that you said it's not preachy, because John's songs will turn preachy.
Yeah.
So it's great that he can put in the message without overselling it, I guess, or
sure,
preachy.
Exactly right.
I totally agree with the things that you've said. It's a harbinger of things to come. It's John sort of recognizing the power that he has, perhaps, and wanting to use it in a positive way.
Yeah, before the bed in. It's sort of in line with that thinking. If you're going to pay attention to me anyway, I'm going to give you something that is worth your time to go spread out into the world.
Yeah, yeah. I've never been a fan of the chorus. To me, it just seems like they're trying to fill space that just doesn't work for me. But the verses are killer. And the way John sings them, again, are killer. You know he's being real, and he's talking right to you, and it comes through. Just a great vocal, which leads to a question. We're both enamored with John's realness, I guess, of his vocal.
Authenticity,
yeah. Do you think that was a skill he was born with, that it's just based on the timbre of his voice? Or do you think it's something that he's developed, that it's a talent that he has? What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's hard to separate the inherent pathos of his life and background from what came out of his mouth. I don't know that Bob Dylan had a terribly horrific upbringing at all. By my understanding, it was pretty happy and contented. And he was a guy that would experiment with different ways of singing, from straight on Woody Guthrie impersonations to sort of finding himself. Then by post-motorcycle, when he goes to Nashville, he's got that country crooning aspect going on and stuff. So he was constantly trying on new things. John, I think right out of the box, apparently briefly sang in church in Liverpool, and then rock and roll came along. So regarding him as a singer in the beginning, Elvis turned him on. You read the quotes in Anthology where he hears that Little Richard record, Long Tall Sally, for the first time, and it's like revelatory to him that black men sing and sing rock and roll. I think, like a lot of people, he started out channeling the singers he admired. Lonnie Donegan would be in that list. Lonnie Donegan is important in the history of rock because for the millions of kids in England who then took up skiffle, he was the first English guy to show you could sing these American black songs with conviction that doesn't sound ridiculous, that you could sing it and sounds like it means something to you. I think Van Morrison was somebody that said that here he is in Ireland hearing Donegan thinking, wow, he's singing these blues songs and they fit. It's not a joke. Maybe I can do the same thing. So if you look at what John's listening to, starting with Donegan and then Elvis and Little Richard and all that stuff, Chuck Berry, he's trying to find where does he fit in this. And if you listen to that Quarrymen tape, the 30 seconds we have of it in the day that John and Paul met, he's unmistakably John Lennon. Does he sound like Lonnie Donegan? I don't think so. Does he sound like Elvis? No. He's somebody, as he would say about his performance on Twist and Shout, a frantic guy trying to do his best. So to answer your question, maybe there's a scientific, quantifiable way of measuring how somebody's psychological makeup influences what comes out of their vocal cords, or it informs, even without you thinking about it, the way you sing. On a surface level, I'm sure he was just trying to channel the singers that he liked. But what made up his inner life was a lot of sadness, was abandonment, was all these things that shine through, particularly when he's singing these soulful numbers, that it has that authenticity to it in a way that Paul, for all his wondrous ability as a mimic of Little Richard's initially, and then kind of developing, here's my rock and roll voice, here's my ballad voice. There are people going to hate me for saying this, but I think that it took him a while to find an authentic expressing his true self on record, whereas most of the time, I think he cast his voice to the requirements of the material, which is not to say that he was incapable, because he was wondrously gifted. A song that comes to mind for me as hearing what I think is the authentic inner life Paul is Maybe I'm Amazed. Maybe Let It Be might be another one. I don't know. But I don't think he saw it as, I'm not here to share my personal story. I'm here to entertain you. And therefore, he didn't put that hat on. John's, I think they were inseparable. I think that he wanted to sing rock and roll. He wanted to be this performer, which was his birthright, given Freddie Lennon and Julia, both who were performers and entertainers. Everybody said that about both of them. So there's no escaping that. But as far as what we ended up with on record, the soulfulness and maybe the sound of his pain escaping a little bit, I don't know that he contrived that. Maybe it just couldn't be helped. I don't know. I don't have anything more informed to say than that. It's just my observation.
Yeah. Okay. So the word was your gold, right?
It was for the UK Rubber Soul, yes.
Okay, gotcha. So that's a wrap then for the English Rubber Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to move on to the American Rubber Soul, right?
Sure.
Do you want to do a preamble to that at all, or do you just want to jump in with songs?
Yeah, a preamble I think is in order. I think it is of the Capitol albums. So here's an album that in UK they deliver 14 songs on the album plus Day Tripper, We Can Work It Out. So you have in first week of December 16 new Beatles songs. In America, they're holding the LPs generally to 11 cuts and generally building them around a hit single. Rubber Soul is unique in that they didn't fold We Can Work It Out, Day Tripper into that album. They left it off completely and still issued as a single. So that was unusual for American Capitol Records practices. They did siphon off Nowhere Man as a single down the road. There's been a lot of talk, mostly decades later in hindsight, Capitol was trying to cash in on the folk rock craze as exemplified by the Byrds that year. By year's end, that's when Simon and Garfunkel just first came along in terms of being commercially viable. That album, Wednesday Morning 3 a.m., had come out in October 1964 and died a death. They split up. Paul went to England, recorded the Paul Simon songbook with I Am a Rock and that sort of stuff on it. That when Sounds of Silence becomes a hit after an engineer at Columbia overdubs the electric backing just to sort of replicate the Byrds thing, it's only coinciding with Rubber Soul, December 65 going to January 66, that Sounds of Silence takes off as a hit single in America. So for anybody to say, well, that was part of Capitol's thinking is to cash in on the folk rock phase going on at that point, there really was mostly just the Byrds. And what else can I say? Like Barry McGuire with Eve of Destruction or Bo Brummels had sort of that acoustic folky pop sound, but they weren't the same thing. And I guess the biggest question mark for me is that if they're trying to contrive from the material they've got, which includes leftovers from the UK Help side too, why would you take off at the most Byrdsy sounding song the Beatles ever recorded, which is If I Needed Someone?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So I think that's a bit of a false narrative. However, it wasn't just throwing spaghetti against the wall. What song have we got? Okay, pick 11 of them. We'll just put it out there. I think there was absolutely some thought put into the programming of this, which is why you have that wonderful I've Just Seen a Face going into Norwegian Wood, which I think is beautiful. 2 acoustic numbers back to back, very different sounding. But to me, I don't know if this is just informed by years of hearing the U.S. Rubber Soul or not. I always thought that Drive My Car into Norwegian Wood was a little bit of a jarring shift. And there's going to be 20 million UK fans listening to this saying, no, it isn't. That's perfectly fine. It's Rubber Soul. Don't you get it? But I think it elevates I've Just Seen a Face, which was just another album track stuck on side 2 of Help. Here you've made it the album opener, and it sounds like an opener. It sounds like the beginning of a set. It's got that vibe to it. and then following it with another acoustic song that takes a leftward shift. Suddenly it's darker and more mature. I've Just Seen a Face is a ditty, and I like it much more, the Beatles recording. I didn't care much for the Wings version they did in 76. I appreciate them trotting it out because it is an overlooked track, but they did too much of a hoedown, I thought.
Yeah. So they gave it a new twist. I hear you, though.
Yeah. So anyway.
Wait. I want to react to that. I've never thought about it before, but I think putting I've Just Seen a Face as an album opener, I think you expressed it beautifully. It elevates the song. It puts it on a pedestal that didn't exist before. That's a great observation.
And the overall takeaway for the people listening to this and thinking, how can you? That's just an abomination U.S. Capitol version of Rubber Soul. You took a great, magnificent breakthrough album in the UK and just watered it down and turned it into this thing that shouldn't even be talked about. It is the record Brian Wilson listened to that led to Pet Sounds. So that's something you can't take away from it. He said it was a gas and it blew his mind. And he wanted to make an album where every song was good on it, start to finish, which implicitly is meaning that he didn't think the Beach Boys albums were to that point. And I'll let the Beach Boys fans duke that out. But I think that if for no other thing, that was the record that inspired him to create Pet Sounds. Even to this day, yes, it routinely makes lists top 5 greatest rock albums of the 60s. There's still an awful lot of people that don't like Pet Sounds. So there is that. In any event, Brian's word is good enough for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that point either. But I will say this. You referenced it earlier. We didn't talk about it. To pull the most soul-oriented song, You Can Drive My Car, off Rubber Soul, I think is a grievous misstep.
Except maybe they made the decision, hey, we've got these acoustic songs. We're going with this acoustic vibe. That doesn't really fit, does it? That said, it's a little surprising they didn't consider it a single. As a standalone single, maybe it would have made sense. Not really meshing with the vision they had for the remainder of the album, but I could see it being a single. It still gets played regularly on the radio, and as they were explaining later, trying to channel that sort of Motown Stax vibe with the upfront bass and all that stuff, I think it's perfectly commercial.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. To my ears, I don't know how you feel about it, It's Only Love is not a folk rock song to me. I don't hear it that way at all.
Not folk rock, but it's acoustic.
I don't hear it that way. Maybe it is. I just don't, my ears don't process it as an acoustic song.
Yeah, see, so we're starting to talk about the album now?
All right, so I'll go with my bronze, which is I've Just Seen a Face. It's fast, it's jaunty, it's sort of double time, it flows naturally, effortlessly, just like falling in love. You just fall right into it. And I'm not sure I can articulate this. Maybe you can. But I do think there's an interesting juxtaposition of, in the chorus, falling, oh yes, I'm falling. So he's sort of falling into a dream state, and yet she calls him back again, which seems to indicate brings him back to reality, but it's his love that's bringing him back to his reality. I think it's a great juxtaposition of falling and calling and how they complement each other. But I think I just made a jumble of it, but I think it's really captivating.
I never gave it that much thought before. And now as you're describing it, I'm listening to the words, falling, yes, I'm falling, so he's falling in love. But she keeps calling me back again as if they're in opposition to each other.
Yes. But yet I do get the idea of he's falling in love, and then all of a sudden her image comes back again. It's like a circle. He's falling, and then he thinks of her, and then it just takes him right back again.
It's almost like he's trying to hold on to the fantasy rather than the reality of her.
Whoosh. I don't know.
I've never known likes of this. I've been alone, and I'd missed things and kept out of sight, but other girls were never quite like this. So it's like he's got this idealization going on, but she keeps calling me back again. Like, damn, you're ruining it. Stop talking.
I think I've created more confusion. Sorry.
I'm sure the listeners will chime in, and that'll be great, because God knows I have no idea what to make of the song now.
There's something interesting about that falling and calling to me. Anyway, and I love that you observed that it's elevated by being the opening track, and I think that's true. That's my bronze.
Maybe it's their mod song. He's Just Seen a Face.
Oh, God. Now you're reaching.
All right. That's your bronze. Okay.
That's my bronze. What's your bronze?
My bronze is It's Only Love.
Okay. Whoosh. Mm-hmm. Give it to me.
So, again, circling back to Lennon's 1980 Playboy interview where he's like completely dismissive and thinks it's contrived, the rhyme scheme and all that stuff. He's just embarrassed by it. I can see that. I can understand as a pop craftsman, as an artist, you look back at your early work and God, is that embarrassing? And it's not that early. It's kind of like mid-period alongside all this other stuff from Help. Like I said, it's another 65 song that I thought was a great, great year for him. I don't think it's embarrassing. I think it's a great melody. He sounds like he means what he's singing about. It doesn't have to be important or weighty or a glimpse into your inner life to be a perfectly valid record. So it's another throwaway ditty, but it's a different sound for him. You know, it's not the whole pop ensemble, rock backing and block harmonies and all that stuff. It's just a nice little throwaway ditty, but it's not a bad one at all. There's nothing too cringy about it.
I would disagree in that I do think the way he sings bright, how he rolls the R in bright, that's cringy to me.
I suppose you can look at it that way, and he only does it once. So
yeah.
Maybe that's an early clue to need to stick something in here to make it interesting for myself instead of doing it straight. I don't know.
I think it's him saying, even I can't take this song seriously.
Maybe.
All that said, I love this song.
Uh-huh.
Once again, it's that vocal. I love it. But despite what he says later, even listening to it at the time and rolling that R in bright, to me, it's like pulling the air out of the song. It just pulls the plug and it all deflates.
So that wrecks it for you.
It really does wreck it for me. I love the song. I love the vocal. I listen to it all the time. It's not something I would ever skip over, but I'm just disappointed in the lyric.
Even the falsetto at the end doesn't make up for it for you?
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Yeah, but there's a lack of authenticity to it for me.
Okay.
So I don't know what you did, but because there's overlap between the American Rubber Soul and the English Rubber Soul, my silver and bronze stay the same with In My Life and Norwegian Wood. So I didn't cherry pick something else. I felt I had to be, it's my own form of authenticity.
Sure.
That I had to be authentic in looking at the track list and what I would select.
Okay. Well, see, I saw this as the opportunity to make up for my dismissal of side 2 of Help.
Okay.
So you've just heard It's Only Love. That was my bronze.
Yeah.
My silver was I've Just Seen a Face.
Okay.
For the reason we just talked about, great opening track, great performance. I love the guitar solo in it, which I presume to be Paul.
Right.
And again, like Nowhere Man, it ends with that harmonic. Doom, 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 doom. And it seems like there's a quick drop in there. But again, it sounds like nothing else they ever recorded. And even he couldn't pull it off live 10 years later. It's a very different thing. Definitely a lesser thing in my view. And just as a side note, is just a point of interest, he cut this in June of 65, the same day as I'm Down and Yesterday.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And just to piggyback on that, as I recall, what would you guess would be the order of the vocals that he would attempt? You'd think Yesterday, because I need my voice sort of soft and gentle, and then probably I've Just Seen a Face, and then I'm going to rock out and go Little Richard with I'm Down. If I got my facts right, he recorded I'm Down first.
Right.
Incredible,
especially when you consider the very last seconds of that song, where he is this screaming his lungs out and going to places he rarely went. I don't know what the notes are exactly, way the hell up there, and screaming it, not falsetto.
It's the genius, the brilliance of Paul McCartney.
Brazenness. I'm going to blow my voice out now in the first song and see what happens after that.
But of course, I know you're saying this, but not only that, 3 completely different song styles.
Yes.
All brilliant. Wow.
Right. Absolutely. Unbelievable.
Interesting to me that it's a Paul song, and I believe it's the first Beatles song that doesn't have a bass on it.
I've Just Seen a Face?
I think.
I'd have to look into that. I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, it clearly doesn't have a bass on it. I suppose Till That It Was You has a bass on it, and I'll Follow the Sun.
Doesn't have a bass?
No, they mentioned this in Get Back.
Okay.
Do you remember that moment?
I do not. I'd have to go back.
I think they're talking about Two of Us, and they're talking about the arrangement after they got off the whole electric version and doing acoustic. And I think he said something about, what are you going to do? How about without a bass? And Paul says something like, like one of those songs we did without a bass before. And John goes like, well, give me an example. Remind me. And I think I'll Follow the Sun is the one that he cites.
Okay. All right.
Listeners will correct us, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
I defer to your wisdom.
All right. I think we've covered that one pretty thoroughly between the two albums.
Wait, so what was your gold?
Oh, we haven't said that one.
So mine is, again, echoing Norwegian Wood still is my gold. What's your gold?
My gold is Norwegian Wood.
Oh, okay.
Because it wasn't my top three for my UK. That was Nowhere Man, The Word, and Wait.
Okay.
All right. So there it is.
All right. Anything you'd want to add to Norwegian?
Not really. I think we've covered pretty well, other than it's just an exquisite piece of songwriting and performance, and such an embarrassment of riches of John's material on that album, excepting maybe Run for Your Life. But with Girl, Nowhere Man, The Word, In My Life, any one of those could have been the gold. They're all that amazing.
Agreed. All right. Moving on to Yesterday and Today.
Yes. You
want to do the preamble for this one?
Okay, so it seems kind of odd in hindsight, a couple things about this album, and we're not going to talk about the cover. The fact that Capitol wanted to put something out and sort of missed the window. Typically, you would think that, in 1964, they were glutting the market with material because they had all this UK stuff they hadn't put out yet on the Capitol label. So in 1965, I think it was June that they put out Beatles 6, which was a lot of stuff left over from Beatles for Sale. But Help is on the horizon, and sure enough comes out 2 months later. So you've got June and August back-to-back albums, and then Rubber Soul in December. So it was in 66. They put out this album in June, followed in August by Revolver, which is like an incredible boom. They didn't space them out, but that's how it was. So this would have been coming out just as kids are getting out of school. We know the whole history of the initial Whitaker Butcher cover sent out and instilling this horror in the people getting the advance copies that they do the weekend where they're pasting it over and burning the rest and putting them in the landfill or whatever, and put out that benign trunk cover. But to me, all that issue aside, where you're taking 3 unheard songs from Revolver still being worked on at that point, and some leftover singles. They had not put out We Can Work It Out or Day Tripper on an album to that point. They'd left them off Rubber Soul. So they're filling out this album. They wanted 3 songs from Revolver to flesh it out. What was always a mystery to me is, here it is coming out on the heels of the standalone single, which was not intended for the Revolver album, Paperback Writer and Rain. Why didn't they stick that onto the album to fill 2 of those slots? And they still had I'm Down, a non-album B-side from the summer before, which was no older than Yesterday, which they're more or less titling the album after. That single that came out in September with Act Naturally, again, siphoned off the Help album, both those tracks. They easily could have done that, left Revolver alone, although would Capitol have put out a 14-track album in the U.S.? No, they would not have. So that would have posed another problem, but at least they couldn't be accused of butchering a landmark release that by the time it hit the stores in the States had more George Harrison compositions on it than John Lennon compositions.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting, weird sort of thinking that went into their putting together Yesterday and Today. They could have done it without touching Revolver, but they didn't. That said, I think it holds together as an album. You've got not only Act Naturally, that Ringo country song, but you've also got What Goes On. And then you've got everything else is pretty straight up guitar driven. Even you got Drive My Car in there. You've got Yesterday on there. And you've got the 3 guitar-driven tracks they took from Revolver. Dr. Robert, I'm Only Sleeping, and Andrew Bird Can Sing. So for all that, I think it hangs together pretty well.
To me, it feels like a mishmash.
Does it?
I bought this back in the day, so this would have been my listening experience.
Uh-huh.
And again, I haven't gone back to it since the CDs started coming out.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels like a mishmash. Dr. Robert, Yesterday, Act Naturally is 3 songs in a row. Yeah.
Huh.
Nowhere Man, it was followed by Dr. Robert. I don't like the sound of that either.
Huh.
And 2 Ringo songs. It doesn't work for me.
So this is not highly ranked as high as, say, Something New for you.
No, it's not. I mean, no, it's not.
Interesting. So there you go. That's, I guess you're the beholder. I don't have a problem with it in that I think it's all guitar-driven songs, the two Ringo sort of country-sounding things, and there's nothing experimental on it. Yet there's a maturity to the material that in places it seems a bit beyond Rubber Soul. If not A-game material, it's at least very good material. I mean, I guess the only song that's really not guitar-driven would be We Can Work It Out. I mean, yesterday I'd say it's guitar-driven because it's built on a guitar, but We Can Work It Out is more, the prevailing sound is the keyboard on that.
Yeah. Is it a harmonium?
Yes, thank you.
Well, okay. Good for you. All right. So I'll go with my bronze. Baby, You Can Drive My Car. Musically, a smart Ringo opening. I love the cowbell. We haven't heard a cowbell in a while, right?
No, not since you can't do that, right?
Yeah. So it's nice to have the cowbell back. I'm all good with that. A tight, catchy guitar solo. I like the addition of the piano. It just sort of fills out the sound to me. I like the little hook that answers Baby, You Can Drive My Car with a little piano touch after that. Back to Paul and his singing, a crazy Paul vocal.
Yeah.
You're going to correct me on this or add to this. It sounds like it comes from somewhere deep in the back of his throat. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, has he ever sung in this voice before?
No, not in the Beatles record. It's very pinch sounding. I think he's going for an R&B thing.
Yeah, but it's a completely different sound that we've never heard before and we'll never hear again.
Right.
Woo.
Uh-huh. It's different. But it doesn't work on its own. You have to have that John with him. And so they're creating a third voice there. That's
a good insight. Yeah, that's a good insight. But I can't believe that Paul's never used this voice again, even in his solo career. I just can't think of an example of it.
Sounds like it hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah, how could somebody create this interesting vocal sound, whether you like it or not, it's interesting.
Yes.
And only use it once in his career that goes on forever.
And maybe it's just another example of them just throwing things against the wall. Let's try this. Because you look at what they had to say about 65, 66, they're very smitten with American R&B. So much so they're thinking about seriously recording what becomes Revolver at Stax. They're very enamored of the bottom sound, which this has a really great bottom sound on it, where it's the guitar and the bass sort of doubling, playing that Motown-y thing that apparently George was the inspiration for. And as you mentioned, the piano part, which is kind of cool. Slide, we're not going to hear that again until George's solo career. And it's not even George playing it, it's Paul.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of things going on musically, and it just sounds like this thought experiment that they tried once. We're happy with the results, I'm presuming, since they made it the opening track in the UK. And then, okay, we've done that. We don't have to revisit this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the Beatles, right? Never.
That's the Beatles.
And then lyrically, it's a full story. It's got a relationship developing. It's a clever twist ending.
It's a joke with a punchline.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Right. It's flirty. It's fun. And I do like, he does say, he sings, maybe I'll love you in that final verse. So we're not quite there yet, which is kind of cool. And I know it's a bridge too far, but this might lead to maybe I'm amazed.
Maybe I'll be amazed that you loving me. It's cynical.
Yeah, but cynical in a sweet way. It's over the top. I've fallen in love with you. Maybe I'll fall in love with you. We're still kind of flirting with each other.
Right.
I have a question. If my facts are correct, they may not be. As I understand it, Paul came in with not drive my car as a lyric, but baby, you can wear my diamond ring.
I can buy you diamond rings, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And John told him that was crap.
Right. And that's not a story that gets played up very often or that I hear very often. And if it's true, wow, that's a great change that John brings to a Paul song. I feel like it's generally Paul that's bringing something interesting to a John song. If this is true, here's John bringing something interesting to a Paul song.
Well, he's acting as editor and telling him that that's garbage, the same way he did with Never Was a Beauty Queen and I Saw Her Standing There. So I don't know if we can automatically conclude then, why don't you sing You Can Drive My Car? That need not have been his idea, other than to say, that's stupid, Paul. But it is funny when you think about their preoccupation with diamond rings, going back to Can't Buy Me Love. I know there's some John's, isn't it Hard Day's Night? Somewhere he also suggests that all girls want is jewelry. So there's some kind of line referencing that. That's love.
Yes. It is somewhat of a reoccurring theme. That's true.
Yeah.
And I know people now interpret it as Baby You Can Drive My Car being a sexual reference.
Baby, let me drive you home.
I certainly didn't hear that at the time. And I'm not even sure I hear it now.
It's John Stewart funky.
Oh, God. Okay. Did you hear it that way? Do you hear it that way?
Only implicitly, like just that kind of strutting Motown-y R&B sound. Lyrically, I guess you can read it that way, but I don't know that they overtly meant that.
Yeah. That was my question. Was it overt? And I would agree with you. I don't think it is either.
No.
Yeah.
It is a great track, for sure. It didn't make my top 3, but I'm glad we were able to talk about it.
Good. All right. Your bronze?
My bronze for that would be I'm Only Sleeping.
Oh, okay.
I always dug this song, and yes, I did hear it this way because it wasn't on the American Revolver back when I was getting into the Beatles individual albums here. So this was how I got to know it. And it is one now that I have no problem with it fitting on Revolver, though I have more of a problem with Drive My Car in front of Norwegian Wood. There is a logic to it in its natural setting, which is Revolver. But as a track on this album, I love that it follows Drive My Car because in my head, it does sound like a second song. It sounds like you've got your grand opening and then you've got this next little pivot, the same way I've Just Seen a Face switches over to Norwegian Wood. It's like not too abrupt, but a stylistic change that works. At least it did in my head and made musical sense to me. And beyond that, I never really thought of it as a psychedelic song till I really started understanding the context of how it came to be written. And the backward guitars sounded exotic, but not necessarily acid-drenched. And that was something that came along with my understanding and studying the history later. To me, it was just a song about being lazy, being somebody that could be perfectly happy daydreaming, leave me alone. I don't need to be part of the world right now. And it just was a great performance by the group. You know, the sort of atmospheric drums by Ringo that are very unobtrusive. I love Paul's little tiptoe bass between parts of the song. Do, 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 do. And then the backwards guitar is just masterful. Just nice bit of flavor to that is sort of jarring and maybe something like would come out of a dream.
And actually, I was just going to say, as you were talking about the backwards guitar, to me, it's not jarring. To me, it sort of fits the dreamy nature of the song and kind of the beauty of the Beatles that they work these things in that are innovative, but not jarring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of it takes you in a different place. The whole song has got sort of a haze to it, like you're in that twilight zone between sleepfulness and wakefulness. But to me, especially in not the filler bits in between, of course, they are different on Yesterday and Today than they are from the finished Revolver because that was an early mix, and so they changed them a bit. But the whole solo, to me, is like taking you into that rabbit hole of a dream state, almost a sort of a spiraling thing. So maybe jarring sounds too negative, but it's abrupt, I guess. It's like you've slipped away from talking to the person trying to get you up and going back down into that hole. That was my mental picture of it.
Oh, I like that. That's a nice explanation. I don't really have anything to add. I echo the things you said. I love the acoustic nature of it. You used the word hazy, and there is something hazy about the production of it that suits the lyrical content. It didn't make my top 3, but it's a song I certainly enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Good.
My silver, And Your Bird Can Sing. Such economy. It's not even 2 minutes long.
No?
Rumbling. No, it's 158.
Really?
Yeah.
That's astonishing.
And it covers so much ground. A nice rumbling bass line from Paul, guitars that are beautiful. John and George, apparently, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, play it in tandem. It's
Paul and George.
Oh, it's Paul and George?
Mm-hmm.
See, you did correct me. Damn it.
At least that's what it says in that Revolver book somebody wrote about a decade back.
Does anybody read that?
I don't know. What does it go? I'm sure it's been superseded.
A great book by Robert. Actually, that's my favorite book by Robert, your Revolver book. I'm sorry, Paul and George. Damn it, I wanted it to be John for some reason. So lyrically, it's a shot at the girl's materialism or her phoniness. It's John starting to get preachy, but there's some nuance to it here. There's some hope you may be awoken. And what a bizarre, interesting word that is in the song Awoken.
There's empathy.
Yeah.
I'll be around.
When you have awoken, I will be around. So much going on. It makes such an interesting lyrical point, and it's here and gone.
Yeah.
A stunning song to me.
Absolutely. And this was your silver.
This is my silver.
Wow. This was my gold.
Okay.
And everything you said, economy, I mean, that blows my mind. If I knew that it was under 2 minutes, I'd forgotten that. But everything about it, I like it head and shoulders far better than the original Birdsey take that we got to hear during Anthology.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that George had that lick composed, or at least it was composed, that he plays it as a 12-string guitar solo before they did the rethink, and then it becomes the riff that drives the song, played in unison rather than a 12-string. George and Paul on their casinos have phone guitars. The bass, as you say, that walking bass line is just so orchestrated where it fits around everything. And then the little flourish at the end. I love that.
Yes.
The no frills drumming from Ringo, just driving the song. No fills, no special embellishments. It just drives it.
Because there didn't need to be, right?
Right.
So much going on. He doesn't need to. That's an excellent point. Point well made.
And at the same time, John's driving rhythm guitar just chiming on the chords. Jung, 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 jung. Nothing fancy in the strumming, anything like that. It's all about driving. So they came to this place for that arrangement after trying out the Birdsey version with the 12-string that sounded very jangle, very 1965 folk rock, you know. And maybe it was a bridge too far to do a Birdsey sounding song with the word bird in the title, but they completely backed off that.
Yeah.
I don't buy the whole Marianne Faithfull BS.
What, that he's singing to her?
There are people with great authority that will say on the internet that, oh, this was John taking a shot at Mick Jagger's girlfriend, Marianne Faithfull.
Huh.
They were friends.
Before.
I've heard that. You'll see that around as BS, I think.
Okay.
However, there is, again, if you want to go dig up that 10-year-old book on Revolver, there was a Gay Talese piece. It was a profile on Frank Sinatra. You know that whole story?
Yeah.
Where he refers to his male member as Bird, and it's like a tick with him, how he brings up a conversation. And Frank had just beat the Beatles out for a Grammy that year in some category. And there are some who are certain it's him taking a shot at Frank in Andrew Bird Can Sing.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And that John was very dismissive of it, as he tended to be about a lot of his songs that had nothing to do with Yoko. So he might have even been embarrassed to think it was a song contrived out of spite. But irrespective of wherever it came from, the performance you're left with is freaking amazing.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. In the last verse or chorus, I'm not sure which it is, it's not your bird can sing, your bird can swing.
Yeah.
Which maybe gets back to a Sinatra thing.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know the whole Sinatra riff that you mentioned. Why do you think he throws in swing as opposed to sing?
Does it not jibe with it being about Frank?
I know, I was just saying that, but oh, come on. You think it's a Sinatra reference?
I'm not going to go on record saying, yes, this absolutely is it, but there is a circumstantial case to be made where all these clues are out there existing in the world when he wrote this song that one could connect the dots. Am I the person to connect those dots? I wouldn't want to speculate on something I don't absolutely know to be true. I'm just saying those dots do connect if you want to look at it that way.
And I'm just saying Paul really did die. Yeah, sure.
Boy, they sure found a talented ringer.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So, all right, so Frank Sinatra aside.
Yes.
Do you see any reason why he changes sing to swing?
Isn't it different with each verse? Andrew Bird Can Sing. I thought each verse was different.
I thought it was sing, sing, and then swing. I could be wrong. Oh, your bird is green.
Yeah, so it is different each time.
Yeah, you're right. So we get sing, green, and swing. Okay.
Yeah, nothing more deep than just not wanting to repeat and keeping it different each time.
All right, good call, Robert. Damn it, good call.
You know the Joe Walsh story?
About Andrew Bird Can Sing?
Uh-huh.
Nope.
So at some point as a young guitarist, he was enamored of that song, like we all are, and set about trying to figure out how they did it on the assumption that George played it by himself. And so he figured out a way of replicating it note for note as a single guitar player playing two notes at the same time, that riff. And he was so proud that he'd cracked the code. At some point before I think they were full-blown friends, he had some encounter with George, and as a fan would say, "Oh, yeah, I really love your work, and I figured out how you did that And Your Bird Can Sing thing." And I showed it to him, and George looks at him and goes, "That was me and Paul."
Oh, that's a good anecdote.
Yeah. But then if you watch the Carl Perkins Rockabilly special, and he's talking about how Carl figured out how to play World is Waiting for the Sunrise that Les Paul had recorded using tape echo, and Carl didn't know that, and so he figured out how to do it by doing this thing with fretting fingers just that replicated that echoey sound, and had no idea what tape echo was or that effect. He just thought that actually Les Paul was playing it, and he figured out how to do it. And it was dead wrong, but he was able to duplicate the sound.
Cool.
Uh-huh.
All right, so that's my silver. Have we shared your silver?
No, we just did my gold. So my silver is If I Needed Someone.
Okay.
So when you look at what George had been writing, contributing to the Beatles to that point, starting with Don't Bother Me, which is an amazing track. Luckily, we didn't have to hear You Know What to Do at the time he composed it, because it just wasn't really up to par at that point. 65, he contributes You Like Me Too Much and I Need You. Both of those, I think, are decent album tracks with something to commend them. I don't think they're embarrassing at all. I mean, if you read certain things, people are like, "Oh, God, he just didn't become a good songwriter until 68 or whatever point you want to say." I think it's baloney. I think the stuff they did that he wrote was at least adequate album tracks. And, you know, there were songs from Lennon McCartney you could point to that are no more special or singular than what he was contributing. I think they're perfectly fine as Beatle tracks. So Rubber Soul, you've got Think for Yourself, which I think is a terrific track. And on side 2, you've got If I Needed Someone, which then gets siphoned off and put on Yesterday and Today America. So we know it was inspired by the Byrds, and it's laden with 12-string guitar, that Rickenbacker sound. I don't think it sounds like the Byrds. And I think that in George's singular way, where he's got a sort of skewed way at writing romantic songs that aren't straight up love songs, at least at that part. They're sort of dark and sort of a little off kilter.
This one certainly is a backwards love song if there ever was one. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Like, if I needed someone, you're the one that I'd be thinking of. If I needed someone.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not saying I do. So that in itself is a nice little trick. You know, that stage of adolescence or maybe pre-adolescence where it is anathema for a boy to announce there's a girl he likes. It's like, girl shuck. And then it's like the more resistant or mean-spirited you are, clearly the more you like them, right?
Right.
So I started sort of an echo of that sort of adolescent mentality, which if you were casting, of course, George, you're the youngest Beatle, you're the least grown up. Of course you would write a song like this. Even though at that point he should have been more mature than he was, but that's him at the stage of Rubber Soul. I've got to write a song for this album to get on the album. Think for Yourself, I think, is totally in alignment with that sort of persona that everybody's well familiar with George Harrison, that sort of grumpy, dour side and the conveying disapproval. You like me too much. Don't bother me. Think for yourself. If I needed someone. That's all in total alignment. He can't do anything straight except for I need you, apparently, to that point. So it's in that line, but it does come off as a fully realized group performance.
Yes.
As did Think for Yourself. We've got two bass lines going on and those great harmonies that they labored over in the studio. And so they do with this. John is very prominent in the harmonies on this, which is really cool. The solo is great. It's a pity that they apparently couldn't pull it off live as well as they did in the studio. You listen to those 66 tour recordings, and you've got the one Tokyo show where when they're doing the harmonies that are just so not on point, and then Ringo is making this grimace that the camera lands on him for a second. It's like, oh, yuck. Can we end this, please? It's too bad because they thought well enough of it to include it in their sets, I guess.
Good point.
Just didn't quite pull it off. But I think it's a terrific George song for that period. And as a Byrds pastiche, they pull it off without sounding slavishly copying the Byrds.
Yeah. I agree with the things that you're saying. I would say up to this point, it's George's best composition. I, too, love Don't Bother Me, and I Need You. But I think this is his best work so far.
Yeah.
It's a great group effort all the way around. The background vocals are terrific.
And only months away from what he contributes to Revolver. Even if you discount the Indian one as like, George going off on his own, Taxman, tremendous group performance from top to bottom, every one of them. And then that wonderfully overlooked off-kilter, I Want to Tell You.
Yeah, it is off-kilter, that's for sure. But it's terrific at the same time.
It really is.
I look forward to chatting about Revolver when we get to that.
Right.
With that song.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we're at My Gold and Yesterday. So this might be cheating at some point. I didn't pick it for help.
Right.
But my God, how can you ignore that song? Musically and lyrically, such deep, mature sadness, melancholy. The strings add poignancy without getting in the way. Wow, it's an incredible piece of work.
Do you have a favorite version of it other than the Beatles for a song that's been recorded as many times as it has?
Probably Ray Charles. Probably Ray Charles. What about you?
I don't have a specific artist in mind other than I know there's a woman singer I've heard doing it that I thought was really amazing. I'll have to dig for that and try to find what that was. But it was a song that, because it was inescapable from my childhood, even before I got into the Beatles, I knew that song because it's one of those things that sounded like it always had been around, which I guess was Paul's impression when he wrote it. I'm certain somebody else wrote this song because there's something about it that is just, it's like part of the wallpaper or something. It's just part of the environment. So it took me a long time to regard it as anything special, not because I disliked it, but because it was a bit over-familiar. And I think by the time I'd seen Rock Show, I'd already read that on the 76 tour, when he did, everybody left the stage and it was just Paul doing it, that it was just a mass of people weeping when he was doing that. I was like, well, that's interesting. I didn't really get it. I didn't get that moved by the song until I saw the Beatles' Love in Vegas. That was where it did it for me. So we're talking the last few years or so. It's like, wow, now I get it. It definitely grabbed my heart out and squeezed it for the first time. It's like, and it's just hearing it on tape. I don't even think it had anything to do with the visual. It was that unadorned, the way they demix it and break it down for love. That's what finally did it for me.
Wow, that's interesting. That it takes the Love stage show, it's not a stage show, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
To sort of reignite your interest in that song. And I think that's great. That's a compliment to Giles Martin and how he remixed the songs so that they sound fresh and they hit
immediate
in a new way.
Yeah. Like, I guess if Paul was sitting in the room singing it.
Yeah. I love that you brought how that show re-energizes particular songs.
You're hearing them with fresh ears, stuff that you were so steeped in. And it's like, I like this song's okay, this blah, blah, blah. But suddenly it's a whole new angle to the stuff. And it's like, wow.
So here's my, but does that elevate the song to a gold or a silver status? Apparently it doesn't.
Well, at this moment, this little snapshot for the show we're doing, we could do the show next week and there's yesterday at the top. Or if we'd done it the week I went to Vegas, probably. This is what I'm feeling right this moment. But certainly looking back at the Beatles' career, I'd be harassed not to put that in a top 10. But for the fact that their entire catalog is so rich, and by nature, I tend to gravitate toward the obscure. So I would have a Cry Baby Cry there maybe before Yesterday, just because I hear it a lot less. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I really enjoyed the Love angle.
Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, I've seen it twice. It's so wonderful. It's so good. Even if there's no visuals to go with it, just the sound system is so great.
I'd sit in the dark and listen to that music.
Yeah, and Giles Martin's remixing is so clever and interesting in how he segues songs you'd never put together before next to each other. Oh, I think it's incredible.
Who'd have thought it? George, I guess.
God bless him. Just to have that. Praise the Lord. Just to have that.
All right, Krishna. Right on.
Oh, man. I love it. There's nothing about that I would quibble with. Just incredible.
Yeah. And to anybody, I realize that's the only place it's playing, but if you have the opportunity, don't pass it up. Don't be cynical and think, oh, I've heard the album, or I know the Beatles catalog top to bottom. You haven't heard these songs till you've seen them in that environment or heard them in that environment. And I'm saying this as hardcore a fan as I could be. I walked in thinking, well, I should see this since this is what I do, and walked out transformed.
I can add nothing to that other than, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, are we to your gold, I think?
That was my gold.
What, yesterday?
No, Angry Bird Can Sing.
Oh, so we got out of order something.
Yeah. Silver was If I Needed Someone.
Okay, my bad.
Okay, no problem.
Out of order. Wow. How much fun has this been?
Something About the Beatles. Created and hosted by Robert Rodriguez. Executive producer Rick Way. Title song by the Corgis.
Thank you, Paul. I was just like him.